Hey guys, another episode of Burning Platform, this time with my good friend Holger Mueller, one of the best technical, technology, architectural analysts in the industry with Constellation Research. Holger, sounds like a wonderful day in San Diego in the background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
It's always a wonderful day in San Diego, no question about that, right? America's finest city. Glad to live here. I'm an industry analyst at Constellation Research. My umbrella message of my research areas is enterprise acceleration. Companies have to be faster, become more agile, break it in two areas, people and technology. Probably I'm the technology guy because I used to build software for 25 years. I spent 20 years at SAP and Oracle, mostly building CRM software. Live here in San Diego because I ran products for a company called FICO, have a fable for data science, had 120 data scientists in my team. Last gig was at a company called Northgate Arinzo, competitor of ADP for global business process outsourcing, and paying 1/3 of the people in the UK with paychecks. So I love architectural challenges and difficult things, for instance, running payroll.
You know, I keep forgetting you are a very good HCM analyst also, but today we're going to focus on architecture. So let's talk about the pandemic. Obviously, you know, we saw massive scaling up, scaling down. I mean, just unbelievable volume in so many different e-commerce, last mile delivery, etc. From an architectural perspective, what made you go, wow? You know, I knew they were capable of it, but I didn't think they could do it. So tell me about what really impressed you, and maybe one or two things you said, I'm surprised it worked as well.
The impressive thing is, 2 years ago at our yearly conference, Connected Enterprise, and Half Moon Bay, which was digital this year, ask people leaders, VPs of HRs, what would happen if the California earthquake would be and you had no offices? And what would be the hit? And the most optimistic one was saying it's going to be 20-30% of productivity hit. Now we know with the pandemic being there on their second or third wave, that many companies, the ones who are not sidelined, right, they're doing pretty well. They're even growing, right? So it shows that humans are extremely adaptable. And it shows that technologies which matter, which have the elasticity in that, and that's basically the cloud, are benefiting tremendously from that, right? So companies are looking at anything they've done in automation where they thought the automation was fine like this, some work is being done by humans, to, hey, I need to automate that because the human may not be available, the human may be sick, the human maybe have to care for others. So automation is really the big winner. Flexible IT cost from the cloud is the big winner.
And what would you say, anything that has been less than impressive, disappointed you in the last 6-9 months from an architectural, technological perspective?
Well, the interesting thing is how architectural depth keeps haunting you, right? So some of the first generation SaaS vendors, right, the most prominent ones are Salesforce and Workday. They couldn't use the public cloud for their offerings because the public cloud wasn't available. So they built their own architecture, and they were very successful. This is why successful companies and they have so many customers. And the problem of that is they bring up the CapEx for that architecture. So when their customers are not doing well, might be sidelined an airline, right, not doing much business, they cannot go down in the cost despite them consuming much because the CapEx is there, the CapEx is paid for. Right, so this is where it's very important for the first generation SaaS vendors to move to a public cloud to offer exactly that, not only architectural elasticity, but also the commercial elasticity, right? So the real thing is like technical depth is showing up, right? If you're not virtualized, if you can't run your data center remotely, very hard when your people can't show up to your data center, as an example.
I thought you would talk about how on-premise systems turned out to be a little bit of a challenge, you know, because people needed many more VPN licenses.
Yep.
Difficult to scale them. Did you see some of that?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge from that perspective, but we had the remote access working to your typical ERP system, both from an administration side and from an access side already. That's what like the whole internet part provided, right? There's very few ERP applications which you couldn't access, which would be very expensive to do. But the cost of the on-premise side is sunk. It's done. It's like the headquarter building you build, the data center you build. That's not being really painful for you right now. But knowing that you sit on an ERP solution where you pay for the CapEx of that, despite it's in the first generation cloud, and you could move to one where, hey, 10,000 people can't work today because there's a new COVID restriction. I don't pay for that. They're not using anything. Right? That's where we have to get to as an industry, and that's where there's a lot of challenges going on.
Well, let's talk about hyperscalers. So clearly they're becoming more and more influential, even in the what you call the first generation cloud vendors, right? So Salesforce has announced Hyperforce,
Yep.
SAP is talking about 4+1, has been talking about it for a while, right? I see a headbutting coming. I mean, clearly the application vendors, CapEx, thank God Amazon and Google can afford it more than we can. But platform, those guys are platforms too. Application vendors are trying to sell Einstein and,
Einstein, that's how the man called himself.
And SAP is trying to sell its own cloud platform and so on. Where, why wouldn't you use Google's machine learning? Why wouldn't you use Amazon's integration and data strategy and so on? How do you see that headbutting result?
Oh, and that headbutting, in my view, is over, right? So everybody under the cloud is using the public cloud and is using their AI mechanisms, right? There's no way that an application SaaS company can, say, compete with Google, who's on this 4th generation of putting algorithms on silicon from a speed, from a cost perspective, from an ecosystem perspective. So that is clear. All SaaS will be running on not just one public cloud, which many people tried to get away 2-3 years ago, but by now it's clear because of geography, because of preferences, because of data gravity. It's very hard to move data between the different clouds. Large enough SaaS vendors have to support multiple clouds, and their differentiation is going to be, I can run on multiple clouds and I provide the value-added services across those multiple clouds.
And so what does that do to the application vendors? Go back to focus on functionality or still try to have their platforms?
No, they will have their platforms for building applications, which need to be abstracted to run on multiple clouds in an as efficient way. So there's no cost of migrating. Remember the old times when you had to migrate to a different platform, or databases would be only available in half a year after they go live on this one, then on this platform. Those times are over, right? Nobody has time for that enterprise acceleration again. But the good news is it means focus on business best practices. And that's where application vendors have to do a lot of work, because right now, it's terrible to be a standard application software vendor, because the new capabilities of the cloud, I call it infinite computing, have changed business best practices from a potential what can be done. The problem is the business users do not know how that process looks like, right? I mean, you were at Sapphire last year, right? Hasso Plattner, he told me the story many times. I worked for him at SAP, right, privately, but finally he said it publicly. He said it was easy to build R2, their mainframe software. He would sit next to the finance director of ICI, chemical company, their launch customer. He would tell them how he does it. He would at night program it on the mainframe. It was done, right? It was a compromise, right? The business user would say, this is what I would like. The trusted technology would find the best way how the technology could support it. Now we've passed this inflection point where technology can do more than what our existing best practices, business processes do and can do. And this is where creativity is there. This is why I say we're in the second mainframe era, right? In the first mainframe era, you would buy the hardware, and if you negotiate hard with IBM, they would give you developer years for free because there was no software, right? Then standard software caught up because it was clear enough where technology is. And now technology can do more, and it's not clear how you're going to do business. And it's very, very hard for any standard software vendor right now.
And Holger, I've been trying to make this point not quite as well as you. I've been telling application vendors they don't have enough functional specialists. That's not a skill they necessarily recognize. The architects, they keep pitching their machine learning, they keep pitching their UX. It's all architectural components. They don't really lead with business process. So maybe you'll see us swing back to that. Let's talk about hyperscalers a little more. So it seems do you want to? No.
You make a great point, right? The problem at the standard application vendors is that they always have been listening to the customers. Customer advisory was telling them what to do. That worked for a long time. Right now, their customers don't know what they will be doing. So it has to turn around. You need to have visionaries. You need to have people who have guts to say, this is how you have to do finance, HR, manufacturing based on these capabilities, and take risks. Because if it's wrong, fail fast and build it another way. And that's what I'm not seeing from any of the SaaS vendors right now. And this is why I'm happy that they don't have to worry about platform anymore and can really focus on applications and come up with a vision how companies should be run in the 21st century.
Holger, thank you for saying that, because I haven't been very successful telling them that. But let's talk about the hyperscalers, okay? So it would seem like in the last year, Google has really found momentum, right? Rob Enslin, Thomas, all the guys that have come from application vendors are giving it the business credibility. Amazon and Microsoft clearly are doing very well. It would seem like Alibaba is continuing to grow in Asia.
Yep.
So, question on two people. What do you think Oracle, how's Oracle doing? And are we going to see anybody from Europe? It just seems like Europe is a laggard when it comes to a local or a regional infrastructure as a service provider.
Yeah, no, let's start with Europe and remind me of Oracle if I forget, right? So Europe has missed the public cloud. Europe has pretty much missed any kind of technology, right? Europe has stumbled on technology. If you remember a few years back, well, 10 years back, right? There was just Apple trying to build an iPhone in Silicon Valley, right? That was it, right? Everything else, Nokia, Sony, Siemens, there was all these European companies building quite okay, good smartphones. You could say BlackBerry from Canada, it's not Europe, right? But Europe has lost any kind of drive of innovation. Now they're trying to hit back or come back with Gaia as a big, listen to the Gaia Summit, right? Well, everybody who was a big title in government for technology was talking there. But who's going to put up the CapEx, right? This is the thing for cloud. Who will put up the CapEx for that, right? And even the European vendors like OVH Cloud, I follow them very closely, they don't have the money to put in the CapEx for that, right? So to compete with the Amazons, the Azures, the Googles, there has to be a massive CapEx investment. And you see that to a certain, right?
Here's what I don't understand, though. It seems like the EU will all aggressively goes after a lot of American tech companies, right? It's almost like there's a let's slow them down and see if a European alternative will emerge. You would see they've tried it for 30 years now, right? Microsoft, they've gone after Google, they've gone after most every major Apple, most major US technology vendor. Wouldn't it be better for them to say, let's focus on building something local rather than trying to slow down US or non-European momentum?
Yeah, and then there's a lot of startup activity in Europe. That's not the problem. But they usually build vertical applications. They build often copies of what has been successful in the US, right? There was a whole slew in every country of order your food and delivery application. And all these seem to be doing well, but they never reach the scale, right? The big disadvantage of doing anything in Europe, even if you start in the biggest economy in Germany with 80 plus million people, you don't have the 330 million consumers like you have in the US, right? So you cannot succeed as a European software vendor in Europe only, because somebody in the US is doing the same thing with a bigger market, which is more ready to invest and risk money in technology. There's a big difference from CIOs in Europe compared to in the US. And so the only way to be successful is why you see that from SAP is to move and be in the US very quickly. And you have to be successful in the US on top of that, right? That's the only chance. And government in Europe, the EU doesn't have an interest from that perspective, right? And right now what you see is they find out regulation and taxes. It's easy to put taxes on companies which are not local anyway, right? Which is hurting, again, their innovation because much, much harder to reach the size. If you look at all the privacy regulation as a startup in Europe, I mean, you spend 20, 30% of your capacity only on privacy regulation to build something. And that doesn't help you to be very innovative, right? While you compete with people who are in larger markets, right?
So I'm reminding you about Oracle. So clearly,
perfect. Yeah.
Clearly with Zoom and TikTok, they appear to have some momentum. What do you see? Are they just too far behind? Can they catch up?
Well, the Oracle is not counted out as long people use their database. Yeah, and their Gen 2, they've built something which is very well tuned for that database. And what customers are doing, you see that in the Microsoft Oracle deal, and maybe there's going to be more of these deals, where the Oracle database gets co-located with Azure, right, physically. And all of a sudden, like perennial enemies like Oracle and Microsoft are working really well together because, hey, the customer wants that, the customer needs that, right? And as long as Oracle runs the Oracle database well, and creates a definition and separation with the autonomous database and the autonomous stack, Oracle will be in the business, right? And because data gravity exists and transactional systems of record do matter, yeah, and then you have to be close to those systems to build something significant. And the Generation 2 cloud is a modern cloud, right? Oracle has the tools for building things on that. And when I looked at the last quarter, they spent record amounts for them on CapEx, right? So 1.8 billion was a level which Oracle has never achieved. It used to be 1 billion and 1.5 billion steadily humming. So they're definitely investing on something that's working right now, which is their Gen 2 cloud. And as long as Oracle has database customers and they don't move off indoors, which is not happening, right? Interesting, reInvent just happened, right? The new number one enemy doesn't seem to be Oracle anymore, but seems to be Microsoft by AWS to move things over, right? With specific migration, even on the code level with Babelfish and so on. Sorry, I'm getting too technical. But as long as Oracle keeps the Oracle customers happy, moves them to the cloud, gives them the chance to have this portability, run very efficiently on premises. If they want to, if they need to run on premises, then they're going to do really well.
So I'm glad you brought up AWS and Azure competition. Clearly they're at the top, but do you see subtle differences, subtle momentum changes?
The interesting thing really is I have to bring in Google. Google keeps challenging the big guys as the number 3 guy, right? So Google challenged them on-premise support, which they had with GK on-premise. Google challenged them with Antos, and Google's challenging them now with BigQuery Omni, but for the first time, one of these vendors supporting BigQuery Omni from Google perspective on the different clouds. So I only have to build for one. You said that before, I have to build AI here and there, but I only have to build for one big data management platform, and Google will maintain it on the different clouds. You see that in very ginger starts too, right? The big takeaway of Amazon's reInvent conferences, Amazon is a software company now. Not like a software as a service platform company, no, but Amazon says their EKS, their ECS container platforms, you can put them wherever you can run them. Right? So all of a sudden, Amazon, from a pure offering perspective, and they don't like that comparison, are the same like a Dell, an HPE, an IBM, which offers hardware, software, and some kind of form of cloud, right? So that shows how important on-premises is, and that shows how important the portability is. Amazon stopped short of saying we'll support ECS and EKS on the different clouds. It's something Google has been doing. It'll be interesting to see what Microsoft is doing on that perspective too. And the big problem that they both have, or they all three have, and bring back in Oracle, right? Oracle is the only vendor who is what I call identicality. I can run something in the Oracle cloud and can take those code assets, really hard to build software, and run them on premises if I need to, if I want to. And it will run again seamlessly the same way, right? There's a compromise on Azure, there's a compromise of Outpost, there's a compromise on Google with Antos.
You know, that's one thing I haven't understood about Oracle. It's something I asked them a few years ago, was you have this captive JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, Siebel, a bunch of enterprise on-premise customers. Why don't you lift and shift them to your cloud? And Oracle did say, well, you know, that's boring business. Basically was the response.
Yeah. Well, they need to have a strategy, but honestly, Apps Unlimited is working really, really successful there. I mean, it's a cookie cutter example of providing value. I mean, Oracle learned this the early way, right? Oracle bought RDB from DEC in the 90s, and there was still $1 billion or so revenue stream 4 or 5 years ago. I have no idea where that is. And that is enough to maintain a database good enough and keep it up to speed. So I think that's the same thing happening with JD Edwards. I mean, I cover HR, I see that for PeopleSoft. The PeopleSoft innovation is so big that people still re-implement PeopleSoft from scratch today,
no,
2020.
Why not lift and shift them from their data centers to the Oracle cloud? Is that's what they thought was kind of boring business.
It's different architectures, right? So it doesn't scale, doesn't take advantage of the whole thing. And I think ultimately Oracle sees these customers as being like the savings bank. At some point, they will migrate them, move them over to Fusion applications, right? At some point, Apps Unlimited might have run their way, right? I mean, SAP is like continues expanding the ECC support timelines and taking the pressure off. But that pressure will come for any application vendor, because honestly, you can't support stuff forever, right? But that's the big difference in the productivity, in the profitability, and in the nature of the business application vendors. Because the traditional hyperscalers, as you mentioned, I don't like the term, but the Googles, the Amazons, the Azures, but Microsoft a little different animal because Dynamics, they don't want to maintain stuff for 10 years and longer in different versions for different customers, for different languages. They are using and working fast on infrastructure and platform as a service use case. And there's so many things they can still do that they really don't have to dabble into applications. But it's happening, right? So reInvent is fully in on the cloud-based contact center and is building all the Lego blocks for you to run your contact center by yourself. You basically have to call 5-6 services and you have a very modern cloud-based contact center which you can scale and run right away. Yeah.
Let's turn attention to data. So it's been an amazing year for data streams, right? All the Johns Hopkins COVID data, all the polling of the election data, the census this year, all the shortened sports seasons, in Germany and everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
New set of data streams. I mean, on and on and on and on, right? New players like Snowflake, Palantir going public, and so on. So data has been hot.
But data has always been hot.
True, but
it has always been hot.
It's hotter this year, right? But here's my question: it's a little more from a ordinary citizen perspective, right? Even though we keep in the enterprise, we talk about single version of the truth. We accept it, right? It seems like in the public domain, faith in data has declined, partly because the media has only presented certain aspects of data, right? So in COVID, they're focused on the number of cases that keep going up. They don't really report much of the hospitalizations or the fatalities, right? So over and over, you see selective reporting of data. Not something you and I'll be able to solve, but how would you say, how do we get public trust back in data?
Well, I think the whole data management community provider, whatever you want to call it, right? All the data people have to step up to significantly better levels. Yeah. I mean, John Hopkins, right? I have no idea how they do this to get all the data and all the feeds, right? They have not, to my knowledge, I looked it up 2-3 months ago, they have not offered, which is the most important measure, when is someone a COVID death, right? Because people can die of multiple deaths, right? And of course, you can't convince countries to follow them, right? They will do it in their own way. But if I'm the data aggregator worldwide, I've been quoted everywhere, I should care for my data and I should say, please, this is how it defines it, right? And I put asterisks on there, right? They count everything COVID. They count COVID only if it was one of 3 or 2 or the decisive one or whatever, right? Come up with data quality, because it's not good data which we're getting there. And we're making lots of policy decisions based on the data. And that's actually embarrassing from my perspective, that you just keep aggregating data and it's garbage in and garbage out, right? There's a story of this Croatian roofer who fell off the roof, a terrible accident, was dead, but was tested positive for COVID and is a COVID death. And so, yes, so as an example, right? But it shows the problematic of data quality, right? And if the data community doesn't step up to do better data quality, it's broken, right? Look at the prediction issues of the elections, right? Every test
the polling was off by 10 or 12 percentage points. I mean,
and there's no critical thinking also for this, and we keep doing the same thing, right? It was off 4 years ago, it was off this time again, and why is it off, right? Just basic thinking says, usually the sample size is 1,000 people. Hey, we have 50 states, right? So if you do it statistically, it's 40 people you can poll per state to get to 1,000, right? Now, you have to have 3 parties, 2 parties, and the independents. You have to have different gender, race, income, background. How are you going to do this statistically valid with 40 people, right? If we don't have sample sizes of, I just put my finger out there, of 10,000 for this, yes, it will be more expensive. It will take longer. It's not going to be new service here, new survey here, new survey here. Then you have no chance to get there. Yeah, no chance.
We really, as technologists, we really need to take a firmer grip on data quality if you want to build trust. Because I think between the polling and the COVID reporting and a few other things, maybe even the census, public trust has been diminished quite a bit.
But that thing is, there's no step up to do it better, right? There's no talk about the US, right? The British Brexit polls, right? There was no thing of saying, oh, wow, okay, we have different things in London and so on, so you have to change the sample size, right? You have to get more data. And we have the whole infrastructure to get more data. Yes, it might take longer. It doesn't necessarily have to take longer, right? And then there's basic usage. California, in which I'm very super unhappy, is only on the 10th of December, we got our COVID notification app available, right? How can California technology part take longer than Malta, a bunch of African countries, not that I want to deride them in any way, take longer for a contact tracing app, right? And we all schlep our cell phones, smartphones around with us, right? And there's this lack of understanding of people saying, well, I'm not going to register for that, and say, but do you post pictures on Facebook with location? Do you use discount codes for location-based services? So what is the difference, right? So there needs to be a lot of learning, but stepping up, I miss in the whole data science, data quality part, this part of doing things better, right? Because it was so hard to do it in the first place. Now you're known. Now you always survey every week. Don't touch that thing, it's broken. And there needs someone to break the data side, the data management, data quality side, to get more trust into data, which fits to the 21st century, because we're still doing data as if everything has to run on a single PC, which got more powerful. No, we don't use the cloud, we don't predict, we don't clean, we don't bring things together, and so on.
You know, I like to say Mark Twain had a famous quote 100 years ago. He said, lies, big lies, and statistics. Well, you can substitute statistics for big data today. There's a lot of public distrust in it. Let's move to something. Let's move to something us technologists enjoy more. Developers. Yep. So, you know, Salesforce is clearly encouraging a lot of citizen developers, trailblazers, right? SAP keeps re-energizing ABAP. Apple has, Google have major mobile developers. I mean, it just seems like development communities are flourishing everywhere, right? So as folks who have followed package applications for the last 20, 30 years, right? Are we seeing a definite swing away from, do we have enough development resources? Do we have enough development discipline to say, I'm going to custom build as much as possible? The application vendors have done their part, good back office systems, but when it comes to industry specific stuff, competitive advantage, I'm going to build again. You see that swing happening?
Yeah, no, that swing is necessary, right? Because you can only do digital transformation, digital disruption, not by out of the box standard software, because it hasn't been built yet, but by placing your bets on specific things. And for that, you need some way to build code, right? And the developer communities are not flourishing in the sense because we're not moving much in terms of developers available in general, which is a big problem, right? So, and in places like China and India churn out hundreds of thousands of developers every year, but we don't get them on the projects which are needed in the enterprise. So it's connecting talent and demand for building this, and the big best practice shift for CIO, CTOs, right? It's no longer to use standard software, but it's about using it as good as it is, talking to my vendor where I think they're doing the right thing, and then figuring out where on my value chain, my supply chain, on my intra-enterprise processes, where can I do something truly different, fundamental, where can I build these things? And I can partner with SIs, right, who have the talent. I can do this internally, build it by myself, but it needs to happen in order to really propel digital transformation, digital disruption in pretty much any industry.
So not anytime soon then. It's going to be.
I hope anytime soon. The industries will fall by somebody doing the disruption, right? Look at the taxi industry. It's so easy in hindsight, right? If Uber comes to town, the local taxi company is calling anybody who has a son, developer, knows someone who can build me a mobile app, right? It's too late, of course, but that's the reaction to that, right? So you need to see people being innovative and succeed with something, and then everybody needs to have it. And the standard software maker is going to take 2-3 years to have it done and get it right. And until then, because everything moves faster, enterprises might not have the time to react on that, so they have to build it themselves. Yeah.
Well, Holger, you didn't use the word Kubernetes even once. You kept it very.
Well, I'm trying to make it easy.
You kept it very, very business language. So
I actually used when I talked about Amazon with PCS and PKS, that's Kubernetes.
You're allowed. That's 1% of the conversation. So, any final thoughts?
No, I think it's going to be super interesting because business cycles have been statistically, as we know, economic cycles have been statistically 7 years on average. And the digital innovation system, the digital nervous system of the enterprise, being ERP, is tuned and fast enough for those cycles. Now we see in the most cases the decompression down to 7 days. Right? You have 3 days to open or to close, and this is how the operating things. And we see a flipping of the pyramid, right? Because enterprise are all about efficiency, top down. This is how we do things, right? Common customer experience, no matter where you walk in a Starbucks, it's the same product and so on, right? So it's all top down. Now all of a sudden we have to enable local managers and leaders to go bottom up, because only they know how they can operate in their current local legislation, city, whatever area that is, from a COVID perspective, right? That's all super challenging for the traditional ERP process. Well,
I'm glad you mentioned Starbucks, so let's finish up with that episode.
Yeah. Why sugar daddy?
Holger and I were at a conference, and we were flying on the same flight back from Las Vegas to San Francisco.
We were going while being at one conference to another conference. It was close enough. Psst, you heard it here first.
So I said, hey, Holger, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. And so he was ahead of me on line and gave them my name. And I didn't notice. So I walk onto the plane and everybody's smiling and laughing at me. And I go, what's wrong? So I sit down and finally Holger takes a photograph and shows it to me. He had told them my name was Sugar Daddy. So that was what was on the So
before people think bad things, right? I didn't call you like this, but the Starbucks person said, is he your sugar daddy? And said, yeah, that works. So the sugar daddy was on your cup.
Well, you certainly gave everybody a little bit of cheer, and we've used that photograph a few times. So yeah,
nice. It's out there on Twitter. It really has happened. So you can look it up.
I'm going to force them to put this thing is partly false. You know, the little statements they're putting on the political tweets.
Yeah, don't trust it. No. The fact checkers at Twitter have found this was a genuine picture and it really happened. So nothing happened on this yet. Yeah. So
Holger, always a pleasure. Come visit me in Tampa again sometime.
Yeah, you come to San Diego. It's your turn. I've been to Tampa.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful city, both beautiful cities. So
no, any time I'll be in Tampa. Won't give up on that chance.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good to see you. Stay healthy, and thanks for having me.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you.